pleased to have here in studio Brian Billick. Before the radio audience rejoins us, good to see you. I introduced you twice, one for television, one for...
Well, that's good enough. So you got to do it twice because half the people don't know who the heck you're talking about.
Well, it's sort of like, do you introduce your offense, your defense?
I love when people introduce me as a former Super Bowl winning coach, like they took the ring back a couple years after.
I guess you're a former head coach of the Ravens, but you're always a Super Bowl winning head coach, right?
Yeah, I would think so.
And I loved the trolling on Twitter you did last week. What was that? What was the circumstance?
You gotta brush them back a little bit. On my Twitter, we do just football.
Yeah.
I had dinner at so-and-so. I know you're supposed to do that, but mine's just when those that follow me know that they're just gonna get, hey, did you see this?
Yeah.
Hey, there's this article. Hey, check me out on the Rich Eisen show. So it's just, I try to keep it just football. And typical, we all know there's a lot of vitriol out there. And some guy just decided to, why should we listen to a guy that's not even coaching anymore?
Right.
And you get to a point.
Sometimes you got to respond. And the way you responded, you tweeted back a photograph of your folded hands. One on one of the fingers is a Super Bowl ring.
And it was, I don't know, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
Great.
Yeah.
Oh, it was fantastic.
Who'd have thought I could be subtle? That was the revelation.
Yes, I know. And I retweeted that. I'm like, yes.
Coach, did you see? Did you see Steve Smith going back after the, as he called it, the negative feedback of all the fat, lazy, sorry couch quarterbacks?
He was a little less subtle.
Wow. A little less subtle than you were.
Yeah, and it always gets you in trouble, right? That's the hard part about this whole.
That's why I don't really respond to Twitter trolls unless they've got like several hundred followers, and I need to explain why they're a troll to their followers.
Well, even that, it's just if there's a point. I used to say when I was coaching with the media, look, if you want to say Brian Billick has screwed up Hogan's goat, boom, fine. Mm-hmm. But if it's he screwed up because, and you want to throw out a couple things,
you're going to
now we're going round and round.
Now we're going to.
All right, now we'll talk. Mm-hmm. Okay, right. You can have an opinion,
right?
But like they always say, you don't have a right to have your own set of facts.
Right.
So, it's all part of how it works.
Brian Billick is here. We're back with more in a moment. The Super Bowl winning head coach of the Baltimore Ravens, another one, joining me here, the first on the Rich Eisen Show
Live. It's always good to be the first.
Good to see you, Brian Billick.
Thank you.
Now,
this is great. Great digs here.
I'm so glad that you are here for it. Thank you for coming in.
Yeah, it's fabulous.
On your way to the NFL.
Other than the 4 hours it took to get from the 405 on the 105 here, it was fabulous.
Well, there are back streets. We can give you. There's an app for that.
I didn't want to risk being late.
There's an app for that. And of the interesting scenarios that the Ravens, how they could clinch a playoff spot, if Denver wins tonight, which isn't that big of an if.
No.
Okay. If Denver wins tonight, all they have to do is win at home against the Cleveland Browns. And then a Pittsburgh Steelers win would put them in. The Ravens fans might have to sit there for the last game and root for the Steelers. How hard might that be for some people in Baltimore?
No,
Brian?
when it comes to that, not real hard, because obviously, but I always used to love it when, and we all know the Steelers travel well. And even when it's given the rivalry of Baltimore and Pittsburgh, and I used to get after the fans, saying, look, if I see a lot of Pittsburgh fans, I'm telling the true Raven fans, I want names. Because you know who's sitting next to you.
Right.
If that's a Steelers fan sitting next to you, you know who sold it. Okay, I want names.
Because it's such a tight-knit group in that stadium.
Oh, yeah. If you're a real Raven fan, I want those names. So that's how, vitriolic that can be sometimes. But yeah, hey, if that gets us in, I'll dance with the devil.
Brian Billick is here on the Rich Eisen Show in our studio. All right, let's hit a couple of topics. First things first, your brother-in-law, Mike Smith, the Atlanta Falcons head coach,
huge win.
Married your sister, that's right?
Sister. We're married to sisters.
You're married to sisters.
Yes.
Okay, that's how you are in-laws. Interesting. Yeah. So, have you spoken to him since they've...
Yeah, I talk to Mike all the time.
Okay.
And particularly when I was doing games and even in the capacity I have now, we use the military outline of don't ask, don't tell.
Okay.
Because there's certain but I'm in just watching it. Huge win for them. Who's played? And I'm biased, obviously, but in the changes they're going to come about next week. You can't do better than Mike Smith. What he's done with that team, the loss of the offensive line, the injuries they have on defense. You can't name me a guy on the defense of the Atlanta Falcons, right? And Mike Nolan, who was on my staff before, has done to me just a phenomenal job with smoke and mirrors. And regardless of, hey, it doesn't matter if 7 and 9 gets you in. To be able to hold that together for the entire season, I don't know many coaches that could do that.
Do you think, though, Arthur Blank has that mindset? Because there's stories Jason Lockenfor of CBS Sports had before the win in New Orleans yesterday that Blank is already considering other options as head coach of the Atlanta Falcons.
Look, every owner in the league, as a head coach, you constantly have a list of guys because you have transition in your staff. Coordinators that get head jobs, leave, position coaches that become coordinators. So you're always prepared for that. And I can imagine owners in the same way, what Bum Phillips say years ago, there's two kinds of coaches, those that have been fired and those that are going to get fired. I don't care who you are. So transition is the name of the game in the National Football League. So yeah, do you have that in your back of your mind that if I needed to do this or that? But only the owners can answer that. Mm-hmm. And it's as eclectic a group that approach this in so many different ways. So with all due respect to Jason Lockenfor and those guys who's, a source close to, which is maybe the pizza guy who delivers the pizza on Friday, that may be technically a source close to, or Don Shula's classic line of in the league meeting, seeing two writers talk to one another, going, oh, there's one league source talking to another league source.
So you went all due respect and then pizza guy in the same sentence.
Immediately, which is about the same status.
That's the way of saying, I'm not saying, I'm just saying.
Exactly.
That's the 21st century caveat right
That's
there.
Right.
So let's get into what happened at the end of the Philadelphia Eagles game, because Chris Law, Eagles fan, and I was watching the game, although in separate places, thinking the same exact thing. After the Sanchez interception, which, by the way, many people in Philadelphia believe should not have stood as called, and we'll talk about that with Mike Pereira later on here. Are you one of those people that thinks it should not have stood as called?
No, I don't. Again, it all comes back to what was the ruling on the field. The same as the Jimmy Graham
I don't know, man. I thought there was more than enough evidence to overturn that one.
You're talking about the interception?
The one where he goes over. No, I'm talking about the Jimmy Graham one.
The Graham, to me, if it had been called a touchdown, I saw nothing to change that. But it wasn't called a touchdown. I'm not sure that we saw anything that said it broke the plane. I think it was a good was it a good call or not? I don't know. Was it a good replay of not overturning it because of a lack of evidence? Right. Absolutely.
So be that as it may, at the end of that game, Chip Kelly had a choice. After the connection from RG3 to Garcon, gave them to the plus side of the field, tack on 15 more. It's obvious that Kai Forbath is going to get a sweep of the leg to try and win this game with mere ticks left, or you let them waltz right in the end zone, use your remaining timeouts, in which I believe was about 80 ticks left in the clock. What were the circumstances?
There was about 1 minute and 30 left. They had 3 timeouts. So they could have let him score, got the ball with 3 timeouts, 1 minute and 10 seconds, or do what they did, get the ball back down 3 instead of down 7 with about 10 to 15 seconds. And
I hear that speculation all the time. And again, these are always the decisions that people, when they want to criticize, act like there's a definitive right or wrong to this. Let me ask this to those that advocate they should do that.
Yes.
Has that ever worked? Ever?
Didn't even. They tried it in the Super Bowl, most famously.
Has it ever? When you think about the permutations of I'm going to let him score, I got to return the kickoff. How many plays do I now? Just on the sheer numbers, if you just do the sheer math of how many things I have to do right in order for this to, turn my way, as opposed to blocking, and how many blocked field goals and PATs, missed field goals and PATs. If you look at the sheer odds of it, now they're not great odds. I'm not going to Vegas with these odds.
Yeah.
But I would ask that questions of those that definitively say, oh, you need to let them score. Has it ever worked to let a team score and come back?
That's also assuming that they're going to score. Like if you try to let them, that they're going to play along.
Exactly right. We saw that in the one Super Bowl where he couldn't help himself.
And then he fell over.
You're exactly, because that's exactly what Belichick was going to do.
Right.
And my guess would be, because we all now sense that has become a vogue question, you prepare your teams to guys, look, we don't want to score here. And my bet would be that they were prepared well enough that if they seen that was what was going to happen, that they were coached up to know, okay, whatever you do, don't go in the end zone, because we're going to let the clock go down and kick the field goal.
But to say, I guess Chip Kelly in his postgame presser said it never crossed his mind.
He said, we didn't discuss it.
Have you ever, has that thought when you were coaching ever crossed your mind with your defenses, let them score?
Yeah, as many games as I've lost, all the permutations you have to. I read a guy at MIT, and I guess they obviously don't have anything better to do at MIT than this, but had done all the permutations that are possible inside of 2 minutes in an NFL game based on score differential, the dynamics of the field, the number. There are over 1.3 billion options based on score, where on the field, the way the game's gone. So forgive us if we don't quite process that in a way that says, you know what?
You mean you're not a computer? Is that what you're saying, Brian?
You know what? I know
Coaches are
right
not
now. I got my
computers?
little card here. We're going to go with option 953,275. That's the one to go to.
Fantastic. That's why you got to get the coach's perspective.
That card would be. I'd have to have a U-Haul truck to bring the card in so I can decide whether to go for 2 here.
I got 2 minutes left with you. As they say in the business, we have a heart out. Harbaugh, you're hearing Jim talk or all the talk about him. What do you think's going through it? Can you somehow, some
Jim
way armchair
Harbaugh
quarterback
went to
this
the
one for me?
University of Michigan
Yes, he
and
did.
has a degree.
Yes.
He can add $8 million for, and I make fun of it. I've said for a long time, Jim Harbaugh may be the first $10 million a year head coach in the National Football League.
Right.
Because that may be what it takes for an NFL team to get Jim Harbaugh. To me, it really comes down to where Jim is in his life. What do you want? The allure of the college game, beyond, okay, Michigan, I'd ask you, do you want him to take that job?
Oh, my Lord.
Okay.
Is that a rhetorical question? You really want me to answer that?
Jim Harbaugh has to decide, if I go back to the college game, this is going to sound odd, but you're in total control. I know you got presidents and boosters and athletic directors. It may seem like a lot of people you answer to, but you run everything.
You're the king.
When you talk to head coaches in the college game, just ask Nick Saban, just ask Bob Petrino. That idea that I control everything. Now, if the fact of working with the best players in the industry, in the ultimate forum, the NFL, the time of your season, and that whole 9 yards, and just the schedule. It's what do you want? But now it didn't used to come up because they didn't pay the money. $8 million a year?
That's
Are
a lot
you
of
kidding
coin.
me?
That's a lot of coin.
Your alumni dollars are going to go. You'll chip into.
I have $35 in my wallet. I would chip that.
That'll do it. That may be what. And you know the Nick Sabans in the world are like, people say, will that make Nick jealous? No, because the next day Nick's going to make $8 million and one.
I know.
Absolutely.
Thanks for coming in. I appreciate that. The Coaches Podcast on the NFL Media label, you and Mooch. And then Total Access, the host of the entire.
Everywhere. I'm everywhere.
You
I'm
are
everywhere
on NFL Network and the NFL Media. Thanks for coming in.
Glad to do it.
Appreciate that. Brian Billick, Super Bowl winning head coach.
I like it.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern. On Audience.